Hidden Object Guru here, joined by...
The unabridged gamer, who's a crow now.
Oh, you did the crow voice. Excellent. So that's right. As the title suggests, we're here to talk about hot new game Crow Country, which my brain auto-corrected to Crow County every time I looked at the phrase.
Everyone has done that. I think it's fair to say that every single human being who has ever played the game or even considered it has played the demo or just, been told about it, mentally auto-corrected it to Crow County.
Yeah, especially at the start of the game, I'm like, okay, so for some reason they call this amusement park Crow Country. Weird name for amusement park, but why not? Then you get halfway through the game, you find the file. No, it's a place called Crow Country that was originally called Condor Country. And I'm like, no, the word you're looking for is county. And I know you have counties in the UK, so this is just weird that you get this wrong. Very strange.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, it is a tribute to the original Resident Evil, the original Silent Hill, with an incredibly specific art style. Like, the backgrounds are all very much, very, very much early Silent Hill, because they're all 3D, low poly, really grimy textures, and I loved. But the characters walking around, there was this, 3-year period on the PS1 in Japan where they were saying, how can we make anime characters 3D? And this is like Final Fantasy VII, Legend of Dragoon, stuff like that. That is what it looks like, and it's so strange to see that unbelievably specific art style recreated. It's like when I was playing Too Dark, and it's like, hey, do you remember that weird thing in that they did in French video games in the 1990s where they would build a claymation model and then film that claymation model from all angles to make it look so many angles that it made it look like it was a 3D model, but you're really just seeing a series of sprites. Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing our animation like that. Like, it's that specific of a visual callback, and it kind of amazed me to see it in this day and age.
For me, I just thought it was actually kind of brilliant simply from an optimization standpoint because this, our listeners might not, but I've been actually studying Blender actively, and my word, getting joints to move smoothly is like one of the biggest hurdles when creating assets, and this art style is so efficient and effective at working for all of that. Like, everything moves so smoothly.
Oh, it does.
Because you look at this kind of game and you're expecting, okay, everything's going to feel very stiff and janky, but not really.
No, it's expressive.
It is very expressive, very fluid. They get a lot of gesticulation. And because they're not worrying about, lip syncing, because there's no lips and everything's overhead, it just really clicks. And despite the fact that there's next to no voiceover and such, you don't really notice it in the best way possible. That, again, is something that you don't really see people embrace as much. And that is just beautiful to see. So much of this game also feels like a very deliberate improvement upon a lot of the games that you're describing, because there's so many games that come out there just like Silent Hill 1 was the best game of all time, or Silent Hill 2 was the best game of all time, and nothing will ever iterate or top it, so we're just going to make that again, but now we're going to make it about a phobia against, I don't know, something weird.
I know.
This game is like, no. We actually can learn and iterate on this formula. We can grow and do unique things. Like, the aiming system is arguably basically Resident Evil 4.
It's exactly
in the format of Silent Hill 1.
Yeah, it is. It is Resident Evil 4. Do you know what touch I fell in love with? A thing I hadn't seen since the PS1, and it's a thing you might never use, but it was in a couple of PS1 survival horror games, and I don't know that I've seen it since. This game has a slowly back up button a button entirely devoted to holding it down, and your character will back up in a straight line from monsters to give you some distance so you can line up your next shot. I'm like, yes, the backup button.
Honestly,
I had no idea I missed you.
So much more useful than the 180 turn. I know that there's so many people who love and worship the 180 turn, but actually just slowly backing up and being able to aim is a lot more useful. And it is also what the average person would do. They wouldn't just be like, yeah, I'm going to turn away from the thing with the jagged saw.
I'm going to spin around, run 5 feet, and then spin around again. No, you back away. It's just common sense, right? Oh, no, I loved seeing that. Oh, I loved seeing that.
I think I'd say in general is just like what is the whole design motif is what if classic survival horror but with common sense sprinkled in.
Common sense, modern design elements, modern design tweaks, right? It's like, it's saying that just because it has this retro graphics doesn't mean the design has to be retro as well. As you say, we can take all of these lessons we learned playing and studying the classics of survival horror and say, okay, well, what if this whole time, and this is one of the things that I love about this particular subgenre, is you say, okay, what if they had kept iterating on the design without iterating on the tech? And it's like,
oh yeah, definitely.
That's my favorite thing. Like, what if we kept the tech? What if we kept the graphics? What if we kept the presentation, but we never stopped asking big questions about design? Like, that's like my favorite subgenre now. And it's so rare to see it done this well.
Oh yeah, and that is just, I want to actually get out of the way, like, really my main complaint, which is simply that I feel like towards the end of the game, some of the signposting for a few of the puzzles got a little bit more opaque than necessary, but that stood out to me more so because I realized, wow, for all of that time, I just knew what I needed to do and I didn't feel lost. And there were cute little surprises to be found for doing the right things at the right time, which again is another bit of design philosophy that we don't see a lot anymore, that it's just really wonderful to have here.
Loved the 15 secrets that were hidden in the game. Love the fact that you can find a map to the 15 secrets that are hidden in the game.
Yes, it was like the map is such a great example because it is completely something you can ignore if you don't care. If you are the type of person who is like, I want to beat my head against a wall and figure it out for myself, you can do that.
Go nuts.
Those of us who have a schedule to keep, we can use the map.
I have somewhere to be, so I'm just going to put on the map. Oh, look, they've circled where there's still a puzzle that needs to be solved. They're circled where I can find an important item. And yes, if I press the secret button, they're pointing out where there's a secret that I haven't found is. Do you know the only place I get stumped in the game? I only got stumped twice. 3 times. 2 of them were with the secrets. I had no idea what to do with the octopus on a scale secret. Honestly, that one felt pretty cheap. Felt like I was being screwed over. And I didn't know what to do with the mushroom puzzle secret. Because, like, how is the solution eat all of the mushrooms? Come on, game.
Yeah, that was real. I really feel like that puzzle also was just kind of...
That was a little unfair, right? But do you know what?
I mean, I went to the point of Googling the names to eat the ones that weren't poisonous, and then it's still like, yeah, no, sorry.
I mean, you don't have to. Do that. It just says on the wall which ones aren't poisonous. Okay,
yeah,
anyway, that's not important.
I wanted to actually be like, okay, this feels like something that's, expecting me to put in a little work. I will actually indulge them here.
But anyway, the funny part was the only part I got actually stumped in the game. This is so embarrassing because I did solve it on my own. I didn't look it up, but I had no idea how to get the gold key. Like, the only thing left to do was to use acid to melt the fairy's head, but I had no idea how to get the acid to work on the fairy's head. And she kept saying, I'm missing a step. And I'm like, yeah, I know that I'm missing a step. What's that step? And it's like, there is something kind of impressive that literally all I was supposed to do was just shoot the dummy in the head. I almost have to appreciate the game. Like, no, what's the most basic thing you can do in this situation? But a weirdly large amount of puzzles just involve you shooting a thing. And there are times you can shoot a thing without having to. For example, the door at the back of the crow, the animatronic crow, there's a panel on the wall, right, that you have to open to press the button to start working the crow controls. And it's like, you can shoot it. And the first thing I thought to do was shoot it to, knock that off. And then later in the second time I was there, I'm like, could I have just pressed the button? And it's like, yeah, you can just pull it off with a button. You can just use the interact button. You didn't have to shoot it. But the first puzzle the game asks you to solve, quote unquote puzzle, quote unquote solve, is go get bullets from your trunk, go get a gun and bullets from your trunk so you can shoot off that lock. And it primes you to the idea that, yeah, there's a bunch of puzzles in this game that you can solve with your gun. Like the trident puzzle, right? You have the choice to kind of like try and position yourself exactly between all four of them, or just shoot all four of the guys and they'll look straight at you every time you shoot one.
Not only that, I loved that, like, in my case, I kept trying to not kill everything. I kept trying to be, a little bit more old school evasive. And yeah, I felt more like using a bullet in that puzzle than I did at all when facing the enemies, because you can lead them into traps. You can just run around them, especially once you get a certain secret that I won't spoil.
Oh, come on. You can say shoes. Come on. It's not a huge spoiler that there are super shoes in the game.
They're very useful for the backtracking.
They're incredibly useful for the backtracking portion of the game, which, to be fair, is a good amount of the back half. There's a bunch of backtracking you're going to have to do. It didn't bother me that much because it's not a big map. It is not going to take you a long time to get through this map, I don't think. Like, it didn't hassle me at all.
For me, it was more like, okay, it was more of a missed situation where it's like, I have poked this thing 1,000 times. Clearly it is used for some purpose. What is it so that I can stop poking it?
Yeah, we've all been there.
But regardless, I still am very impressed by overall, because like you said, the pistol ammo, you can actually effectively never run out of ammo, but because of the hazards of backtracking, because of the dangers of the monsters, the further in you get, it still discourages you from being wasteful. Because if you're going back through a horde of enemies, is it really free ammo? Is it really? Because, like, at a certain point, you will legitimately just be like, okay, you know what? No, the bullets aren't worth it. And you instead try to make do. I will admit, though, that it is kind of weird that there's, like, no melee thing that you can rely on.
Yeah, I found that very weird that there's no melee at all. Now, that is true of the original Resident Evil. It kind of had a knife, but the knife was real bad. Like, you had to switch into your inventory to get out the knife. It was a kind of a mess. Here, the way they justify not having any melee at all is that at any point, if you were ever out of extra ammo for your pistol, you can go back to your car and get 8 more bullets. And that is how they justify that idea. And, that is useful. I thought that was a nice touch. I was actually kind of impressed by that. But at the same time, yeah, it would have been nice if I could have kicked a monster or clubbed a monster. That would have been handy in many situations.
And again, it's a deliberate choice, because also if you want to loot ammo or anything, you have to shoot it. You can't just do the Leon Kennedy knife stab.
Now, there is a way to be able to do the Leon Kennedy knife stab, but that one I won't spoil. Did you ever find that?
I apparently did not.
Okay, well then I'm going to tell you, I'm going to save that to the back half of this where we're going to talk about spoilers in a bit. But before we start talking about spoilers, I just want to, can we just go over a couple more design things that I really liked?
Yeah, sure.
Optional bosses.
Yes.
Optional bosses was such a smart choice. There's only one boss you have to fight in this game. The other 4 bosses, they appear to you at a puzzle inside a puzzle. And there is always a way to solve the puzzle without having to kill the boss. Like, you can always run away from the boss. And I'm like, that is so unique to the genre. Like, have I ever seen a game being willing to say, yes, every single one except for the final boss is an optional fight? I don't remember that. Like, imagine a Resident Evil where, like, the snake shows up and you're just like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna go.
Snake, it's a snake.
But it's like, it seems insane to do that in a video game, right? But here they're like, no, because of the game's themes, they want to be sure that it's like, no, it's always an option to run away. It's always an option to avoid. As you say, it's frequently an option to lure them into traps.
Yes, although I do want to, that does remind me, there is one criticism I also want to give, which is like, I appreciate a lot of the traps. Some of them are very, very clever.
Oh, yeah.
But the booby trap items are so blatant and obvious that I feel like they're just a punishment for people who have color blindness, because that's the main 100%. Indicator other than positioning.
Red and purple, like, yeah. I know.
Yeah, it's not cool. This feels like something that someone should have said, my dudes. And that's the other context, is this is made by two brothers.
I know. Like, it's a two-person game team. Like, the whole game.
From what I understand, yes. And they actually, the one started prototyping it during the pandemic. They were working on something else at the time, and he just had this little idea, so he started poking around with it. And then the other brother found out, and they just rolled with it.
I am shocked, because it plays amazingly well. Like, it really does. Like, if I haven't made it clear to this point, I loved this game. I just thought this was fantastic. Thank you so much to who hooked us up with these? The publisher, I assume?
This was Neon Hive, I want to say.
Full disclosure, we got codes from Neon Hive, and thank you so much for sending this over. It really is it's a tribute game that I think, man, it's one of those things where, as you said, there's so many games that are these Silent Hill tributes that are just comfortable to go over the exact same beats as Silent Hill, the same character types as Silent Hill, the same plot points as Silent Hill, right? You don't feel like it's trying to grow or do something different. This one absolutely 100% has its own kind of world, has its own story to tell. Just the fact that it's like, how many of these games do you get to like rescue people in? Almost none.
Yeah, I love also that you do actually get the choice between being a nice person or being a dick.
It didn't even occur to me that you could be a dick, by the way. Never even occurred to me for a second to be a dick in this game.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't want to be a dick either, but I'm like, oh, I could be rude to this person if I wanted to?
Yeah.
Huh.
And you could not help people, wild. I guess, if you wanted to. It never occurred to me to try not helping people, but, I'm sure you could. But I just like those extra levels. You can't save anybody in Silent Hill. You can't even save anybody in Resident Evil. Even though, like, that's literally your job. Whenever you show up in Resident Evil, everybody dies except for Rebecca, Hell, in the first Resident Evil, Jill or Chris can die with a successful game if you never bother letting them out of jail. Like, that's how... I think they fixed that in the GameCube remake. I think they changed it so, like, you have to let them out to complete the game. But I'm not even sure of that. Like, that might not be accurate. But what I'm saying is, it's like, that extra level of humanity, right? I found very interesting and not what I'm used to in this genre at all. Because this is the thing, we've only been talking about gameplay up until this point, and we're about to move into spoiler territory. So before we get into spoiler territory, if we haven't convinced you to play this game yet, can you just agree with me that it has an amazing story?
Oh yeah, it genuinely, you will not be expecting where it's going with this, because at first you're like, oh, I recognize what kind of homage they're going for here. And it's like, yeah, that's how it seems to start, but they go places with it that I really enjoyed. The protagonist, Mara, goes in directions that were really satisfying. Overall, just in general, it feels like they were trying to genuinely think outside the box, although I will also say, I do feel like that desire to really surprise people may have led to an ending that I still feel was a little weirder than I was really expecting. But still, regardless, yeah, if you are so tired of seeing the same old song and dance like we're describing here, yeah, you need to pick this one up. You need to enjoy it, like truly just let yourself enjoy it, because I played it basically in one day, and you could really feasibly do that, especially if you are like a horror game veteran. I have little doubt.
It's a 3-hour runtime. No problem. You if you were familiar with this genre, if you were comfortable with these kinds of puzzles, and there's even a hint system within the game. You only get 10 hints, and you need 3 hints on any topic for it to be a useful hint. But still, there is a hint system in the game. But 3-4 hours, I think, if you're really experienced.
I do want to also note here, if you are having issues and you want more hints than the hint system is giving you, but don't want to have to Google it, the hints, if you get all the hints and just write it down and then reload.
Reload. You keep your file. It didn't even occur to me. You're right. You can save, get the hints, and then come back. That didn't even occur to me. But yeah, you're totally right. You can.
I did that actually not even to as a trying to exploit anything, but just because it gave me hints that I already knew. It's like, this is not the step I'm unclear on.
I know that. Yeah, because they start right at the beginning. They're like, the next thing you're supposed to do is, I know what I'm supposed to do next. That's not the issue we're having. My God.
Just bear that in mind.
No, totally.
It's a nice way to recompensate yourself if they give you nonsense.
100%. Yeah, it didn't even occur to me, but yeah, that's a great system. Yeah, I did use hints. My first playthrough. Now, are you ready for the crazy news? Like the shocking news before we move into spoiler? I played this game twice.
I believe it.
I played it because what happened was, and this is something we probably should have mentioned by now, there's a no monster mode in this.
Yeah.
There's a no monster mode. There's just like, do you just want to explore and do the puzzles? Yeah, no monsters. Boom, done. You'll still get all the guns and you'll still have the shooting puzzles, but there's no monsters in the game, no threat, nothing. And so I was like, really? And so just my first time playing through, just on a whim, because I wanted to see what this how it played with the no monster mode. And I gotta say, it's just a really good graphic adventure without the monsters. Like, it's really wonderful. But then I'm like, I feel like I won't be able to fairly review this, because if I hadn't liked it with no monsters, I probably wouldn't have played it the second time. I loved it. So the second I finished it on no monsters, I'm like, well, I'm going to be reviewing this with Unabridged. I'm probably not going to be able to fairly talk about the game if I don't, try it with the combat. So I loaded up a second game, just assuming I was just going to try the combat. But I ended up playing the whole way through a second time. Because that's how good a time I was having with this thing. It really is.
New Game Plus unlocks as well. That's also worth mentioning.
Oh, yeah. The New Game Plus unlocks are great. Depending on your score at the end of the game. And there's a really fun mode in a New Game Plus, and I'm not going to say what unlocks until we get to the other side of spoiler territory in about 30 seconds. But I just want to say that, non-spoilery, it is worth going back and doing the New Game Plus mode. There's a special mode hidden away in New Game Plus that I think is definitely worth doing. All right, so a full recommendation from both of us for this delightful experience. Now let's get into spoiler territory. Spoilers start now.
Wom,
okay.
Wom.
So at what point did you know what was going on? At what point did you figure out what was going on? Because for me, it happened embarrassingly early.
Like, soon as they started mentioning the mining, I knew in general where they were going with it. I didn't so much predict, time portal.
Well, I didn't know the time portal, but here's what happened. So right in the first room where anything scary happens is the main concourse, and you find the guy who's been bitten. And written on the ground in blood is 2106. And I'm like, okay, gonna have to remember that number for later. This is a video game, I know how they work. And then I noticed that none of the keypads in the park have zeros. And so the minute I noticed that none of the key parts in the park have zeros, I'm like, so these guys are from the future. They're from the year 2106. Was absolutely my first thought. I'm like, I wonder how they got here from the future. And I spent the rest of the game wondering. And then the payoff for how they got here from the future is magnificent. Like, isn't that a satisfying ending? Or was it too crazy for you?
For me, it felt a little bit like it was that was pretty much my main other criticism. Personally, was it felt a little out of left field for me. It's sort of like if you like it, to give a perspective of how I feel about the overall narrative, I would compare the overall narrative to being about as tight as, like, say, season 1 of Westworld. Like, every character has a deliberate purpose and reason for being here. Everything pays off. The main antagonistic force and the protagonist have a real reason to have any sort of rivalry or grudge, and it's very satisfying to see the two of them come face to face.
Yeah.
And understanding why the antagonist did what he did and everything really felt good, but still, it just was like, I was expecting something supernatural because I did not notice that number like you did. So for me, I was still expecting
a curse,
something, some kind of metaphysical thing, because
I get it.
Between the mentions of South America and all of the gold and everything, like, there's plenty of myths and legends they could have pulled upon for that, and instead it's like time portal. And I'm like, I mean, I can see that, and I guess if someone was harvesting bits off of a Stargate, that would happen. But
this is a story about people stripping a Stargate for parts, and then the people coming through it, come through as monsters. That's what this game is about, and that's fantastic.
Oh, it's a really interesting idea, and I don't want to be like, I am open to the idea. I do feel like if you miss that number, which I feel a number of people are not going to immediately intuit, that means time travelers. They're gonna be like, wait, what?
To be fair, though, the game does hit you with the number over and over and over again. The further you get into the game, the more that number gets written in blood on the walls. Because it starts in the floor, but then in every other room, a monster has written 2106 on the walls. Like, by the halfway point in the game, you can't not have it rubbed in your face. Were you so busy fighting monsters you didn't notice?
I was really busy running around fighting monsters and trying to unlock things so that I could get as many of the secrets. I got most of the secrets, but I was really trying to be good about it and just figure it out by my own wits, and I'm just sort of like, there's more stuff scribbled on the walls there. Oh, look, it's another giant trying to nemesis me.
I know. I love by the way, I'm sad we didn't talk about this in the non-spoiler section. I'm a little embarrassed. I forgot because we were talking about how complimentary everything else. How incredible is the monster design in this game?
Oh, they really went all out. This is the first time since, I think, Dead Space that someone has really tried to do more than just generic zombie number 5.
Right? And the crazy part is, there's so many types. Like, you keep seeing new monsters the entire length of the game. I thought, okay, so there's going to be the puddle guys, but then there's multiple type of puddle guys. There's going to be the guests, there's multiple type of guests, multiple type of gremlins, just one type of bony and one type of strong guy, but then there's the spike guys, the eyeball guys, the guys literally try to club you with a piece of antenna. Like, how fantastic is that? Oh my God. It's
Bikers that try to porcupine you were definitely the bane of my existence.
Oh God, aren't they the worst? Oh, I hate
they really
those guys
do suck.
So much.
In the best way possible, but oh my gosh, yes, they can rot in hell.
I know those guys, they are the worst. One of the things that I found just unbelievably good, though, and this is just more story stuff, is, again, it's an anti-capitalist fable. It's pretty clear.
Oh yeah.
It could not be clearer what the message and politics of this game are. It's an anti-strip mining. It's a game about people who strip mine the future for profit today, right? And I love how clear-eyed it is in that message, to the point where they go out of the way to point out the Crow family was already rich.
Mm-hmm.
They were rich people. They didn't have to do any of this. They did it because rich people always want more. And I mean, there's a moment where he says, I've had more money than I could have possibly needed. We didn't even need the gold for anything. And then you have the lower middle class guy who got employed in this, of course, who desperately has now lived the rich life and is the game's real villain and will do anything to to keep this going. Literally, the only person in the game, no monsters kill any named characters in this game, unless you like go out of your way not to help those main characters. But it's like named characters get murdered by another human in this game. Right? 2 characters get killed by the mining chief. And again, you want to talk about like thuddingly obvious metaphors that I love, because I love when people put it all out on the table. They shut down the part of the new part. They were building part of the park that was going to represent the future, and then they canceled the future. Like, come on. That's amazing. They canceled the future. Like, as if it was, I mean, now that you think about it, there were a lot of pretty clear hints, right?
I'm seeing some hints, yes. I still say on behalf of those of us who were busy
scrambling,
not playing the no monster version,
I know.
Death was a little bit more in our faces. I
do understand that I have a very different experience because I played the adventure game version, not the action game version, 100%. But you know what? It was a callback to my beloved Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade of the past. Are you familiar with this LucasArts game?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with what you're talking about here. How you can choose basically
at the start of the game. Yeah, you chose which version of the game you wanted to play, whether it's just puzzles, whether it's mostly fighting, or whether it's a mixture, and you can on the fly decide if you want to do whatever, however. Yeah, it's a very good game, the original Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade LucasArts Scum game. But anyway, but yeah, you're right. I did have more time to think about this plot stuff because of that. Also delightful was all of the hints about who Mara was. Right? That was really
I did
well
like.
done.
That I did really appreciate, especially once the big reveal of, because like at first she gives this narration like, oh, she's just a cop that happens to be, you know,
and it seems like she's narrating to us.
Yep. And then we start to learn, oh wait, she's not Jill Valentine.
Nope.
She's basically Rebecca before getting hired as the confusingly 18-year-old team medic, because Resident Evil is like that.
Resident Evil is like that. Everyone is like a veteran special forces operator at 23 years old. Wait, what? Okay. But anyway, what I loved is, and that like, it's full of these great moments because like there's a conversation that you have when you first meet Tolman, the mine supervisor. He knows it's Elaine immediately, right? The minute he meets her, he knows it's Elaine. And every line he says references that, but the first time you play the game, you don't understand what he's saying. And then you have like even the little hints. My favorite hint in the game, I mean, there's the jokes about her like not being allowed to smoke because she's 17. But of course you don't realize that till later. Like if you interact with the cigarette machine, which by the way, as someone who was in the 80s, yeah, there used to be cigarette machines everywhere. But anyway, they don't exist anymore. But yeah, they used to be everywhere. Anyway, there's this great moment, right, where she's going through. So Mara Forest, supposedly, if you're in the gift shop, you can look at the mini license plates, and she looks for an Elaine. She's like, she doesn't say her own name, but she's like, you know, Eleanor, you know, she gives a couple of EL names, and she's like, they never have it. It's like, gee, Mara Forest, why are you looking for an EL name? Oh,
this is another one where I sadly missed it because I was busy trying to solve the action figure puzzle.
Oh, the action figure puzzle. I know, right? That was an annoying one. I think the answer was 1975. But it's just, no, beat after beat, like all of these, and I think that's what I found so impressive about it, is it put all of this stuff right in your face, but it's, as you say, so good at just being what it is. It's possible, because you've just told me that it's possible, to go through the whole game without even noticing all of these puzzles. Like, and all of these hints of the puzzle that's like, like you're so busy with the combat and the puzzles, you don't realize that there's a giant story puzzle you're not even seeing. And I think that is deeply cool.
And it's not in a Little Hope kind of way where you have to piece it together like it's a CSI crime scene.
Yeah, well, we can talk about Little Hope. Ugh. I mean, Little Hope, the thing is, to be fair, like, I saw all of the clues in Little Hope, right? If you watch my first playthrough, you'll see me acknowledging every clue as it happens, but I can't, like, my brain cannot accept that they would betray me with an "it's all a dream" ending. So it's like, because it didn't exist in my head, the possibility that this was all a dream, like, all of the clues just made no sense to me. It's like, as I reached each clue, I found out the clue, and I'm like, that's impossible. That doesn't make sense. Wait a minute. Why have the darts changed? Why did the name change? So it's like, I saw every clue as it was happening, and I call it out all in my video, but it's like, because it didn't occur to me they could possibly be doing "it was all a dream," I couldn't, my brain couldn't allow the hints to coalesce the way they did when I was playing Crow Country. All right, so it's magnificent. It's genuinely affecting. It's got a fantastic ending. My favorite hint in the game. When you go into, I think it's Tolman's office, there's a radio there. And do you know what it says if you click on the radio?
Memories foggy. Hit me.
Okay. It says the radio signal is all broken up. Well, of course it is. The antenna's broken. I know, right? Isn't that amazing?
That is very cute.
It's very cute. All right. So yeah, I loved this thing. You know, I'm not going to say it. And I think if you were talking about, and I'm ready to say this, I play a lot of, you know, classic survival horror tributes. I mean, this might be the absolute top of the line for retro survival horror games. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Puppet Combo. I'm in a Puppet Combo game, okay? But I think, just if you're talking about tributes to the best of you know, survival horror, right? The way that this not only hits all of the beats you want it to, but so fully manages to be its own thing, to me, puts it right at the top of this entire genre of retro Silent Hill-esque, Resident Evil-esque horror games.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely that it is by far one of the best ones currently available right now, and I hope it inspires more developers to feel like they can take risks and everything, because it is so refreshing in that it understands that to do a proper homage, to look back fondly without holding yourself back, you have to be willing to try new things. You have to be willing to explore the possibilities, and that is something that Crow Country does perfectly. It never feels like it's doing a thing just because something else did it, and I really hope we get more games that do that, because it's just more interesting. I don't feel like I could just boot up a Silent Hill game to get the same experience that I got out of Crow Country.
No.
And that is something that is depressingly rare, because like you said, Puppet Combo, brilliant work, really outstanding stuff, but yeah, he is also still very much in a very specific niche, in a very specific control style, which is totally his prerogative, and he's done some really cool things with it. But yeah, you can also not do that. You can do something different. Like, we have someone who's pretty much become the capstone of, and by I'm meaning in the more figurative term, not the game development studio capstone. Gosh,
Capstone!
No. Yeah, the pinnacle of entertainment.
Hey, I loved Zorro. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, it just like, we have someone for if you just want to play exactly like how things used to feel. Let's actually start exploring like the full possibilities. It's also really refreshing to see, because, and I know this is going to sound like an odd angle, but recently I've been having to look at a lot of FNAF games for a thing that I won't go into right now. But in looking at them, I really came to understand just why both mascot horror as a subgenre got so annoying, and also why even Steel Wool Studios have struggled to fill the void left by Scott Cawthon since, because regardless of what you can say about him as a person, as a developer, he always was iterating and creating and trying new things. Like, no single entry in that series tries to specifically do the same thing. Whereas I've seen a lot of like other attempts to make a mascot horror just be like, so we're just gonna make Outlast, but it's with evil Garfield,
with
and he goes a boogity boogity boo. No, that's not what made FNAF work. And I would say this is a better example of what actually made that work. It's compact, it's focused, it's not doing anything extraneous that it doesn't need to, and it's just staying completely true to the vision of its specific individual production. That is how you make something that is memorable, that is distinct, and above all else, it's to scope. Both are made by a small bunch of people. Like, as we said, this was made not by, this was just two brothers for the most part making, and it's outstanding.
Their eyes weren't bigger than their stomach.
One person. Yeah, that's just it. It's like you can reasonably accomplish something really impactful, even if you're just like a solo developer or you've only got a sibling to drag along for the ride. But you gotta stay in scope, you gotta stay focused, and you gotta just be here for specifically this core experience. And Crow Country gets that. Crow Country is 100% just interested in doing what it's trying to do, and I know that sounds like it should be obvious advice, but again, I've been having to look at a lot of other examples that apparently don't understand that.
It's an issue. It is 100% an issue. All right. So on that note, thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm sure I'll be editing a bunch of Crow Country footage into this, along with a big, picture that says spoiler warning at the spoiler warning part. And a spoiler warning in the description as well. Because again, spoilers are big in this game. Speaking of FNAF, is there a thing you would like people to read?
Yes. I can announce right now is I have just done a review of Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 for Upload VR. You can find it right now on their website. I dug through the Quest 3 version. I poked at everything under the sun for it, and they specifically had me in because I am one of the few games journalist critic type people who actually takes FNAF seriously. So I can actually tell you all kinds of very specific niche things about it and how it connects into the broader spectrum of the setting. So if you are a person who actually also wants to know, should I be playing this? Spoiler warning, yes, I'll go into why in the review.
Okay.
You can check that out.
All
also,
right,
you can find me in the latest issue of Game Informer.
Finally! Yes. We talked about this last time, but we had to cut it out of the audio when it turned out it was still under embargo.
It's issue 366, the Hades 2 issue. I'm one of the first features in there. You can actually, right now, as of this recording, read it free online. I'm not sure how long it's free online, but you can check it out there. Or you can find the magazine in literally any GameStop.
All right. So yeah, it's an amazing article. I got a chance to look at it because it is free online. I haven't been into a GameStop. It is an article about the Star Wars Starfighter they made an arcade game, and it's kind of an amazing story. That it still exists somehow.
It's a truly incredible thing, too, because it is basically the Bigfoot of Star Wars gaming. There are, far as we know, only 10 cabinets still in existence, one of which in pieces.
That's incredible. All right, so check that out as well. For me, I'm going to be putting up a story explained of this game because there was a lot of story to explain. And when the second I finished, I'm like, is there a story to explain video? And there was one, and he didn't understand the story. So it was 5 minutes long, and he didn't understand the story. And I'm like, I don't think you can explain this story in 5 minutes. I really don't think you can explain the story in 5 minutes.
there's a lot more to cover than we even talked about here. There's whole other characters we haven't even mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
So
absolutely.
There's a lot to cover.
There is a lot, and if the thing I most want is a sequel that explains what's going on with the weirdo monster who lives in the vents. Who you can't kill. There's a weird monster who lives in the vents who has like a fully realized face, unlike all the other monsters, and seems to like not be falling apart like the rest of them. And I want to know what's going on with that guy.
I would like to introduce him to a flamethrower for the amount of times he cost me health.
Oh my god, he's the worst. All right, so that's fantastic. We'll see you back here for the next thing, which is probably going to be us talking about Silent Slayer, a game I'm in love with, but it's under embargo, so I can't say any more than that. See you back here for that, but until then, au revoir.